This is May the 2nd, 2022. I'm with Ajahn Punnadhammo in Northern Ontario. He's been a monk with 30 years seniority, and pannobhasa in South Carolina. He was a monk with 30 years seniority. Now he's a layman. And we're going to discuss, is Theravada Buddhism politically incorrect? And pannobhasa thought of this. So you can go first, Panno.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of set the stage a little bit in that in Western Buddhism especially, it seems for various reasons, various social reasons that we don't really have to wade into, that it has been largely like commandeered by the radical left. And they're trying to combine Buddhism and this radical leftism and turn it into one system somehow. And you wind up with leftism that's got some Buddhist flavoring added. But the thing is that there are certain just fundamental teachings of Buddhism that just are completely at odds with this new kind of Western Buddhism that they're trying to create. And like, just for example, just the whole idea of kamma or karma, where, you know, if you're born into a bad situation, you know, it's your own karma that put you there. If you are in a bad situation, it's not somebody else's fault. I mean, at the surface, you can say, you know, there's somebody is oppressing you or something like that. But deep down, I mean, we're creating our own reality. And it's just something that it's a fundamental teaching of Buddhism, but it's unacceptable to the new Buddhists of like the universities and so forth, or the, you know, Los Angeles, you know, the latte drinking Buddhist set, or whatever you want to call them. It's or another one is just the second noble truth. You know, it's just the bedrock of Buddhist philosophy that whenever you're unhappy, it's because you are craving something. And again, it's like the these new leftist Western Buddhists, they want to blame somebody else. That's the way, like, you know, Marxism works. You know, you've got the oppressor class and the oppressed, and, you know, you got to rise up. And I mentioned before when we were doing a video a couple weeks ago, I think, that I've seen at least 2 academic articles written by Buddhist scholars saying that the second noble truth should be modified, because not only does craving and desire cause suffering, but also systemic oppression and patriarchy and racism and this kind of thing.
But pannobhasa, maybe these scholars know better than the Buddha. Maybe they're wiser than the Buddha. Maybe we should refer to these scholars.
Yeah, did the Buddha ever read Derrida and Foucault?
No, apparently not. But I mean, in the Buddha's time, I mean, you had a much worse racial situation or class situation than you've got now. I think you had the caste system in effect, and you know, I assume that Buddhism started off primarily as like a movement of the privileged classes. I think, you know, it's like Brahmins and Kshatriyas and the twice born, the Aryas, so-called. There were, I mean, the Buddha was inclusive. Anyone who wanted to join the Sangha, who was qualified, could join. But for some reason, it was just appealed more to more intellectual people, you know, people who had better educations or something. And that's the way it is now. But it's somehow seen as wrong now, when it was just the standard in the Buddha's time.
Yeah, if we look at the Buddha's teachings, whenever he talked about caste, he ignored caste in terms of his own sangha. Like, he would ordain anybody, even down to the chandalas, but he didn't crusade against trying to end caste in India. He took it for granted that it existed, that this is how society was ordered, and that the only thing he objected to was the Brahmins' claim that it was something primordial and laid down, you know, from the origin of time. Give the example of the Yonas, the Greeks. He said they only have 2 castes, free and slave. So it's not something universal. It's a human convention.
Yeah, and they could change places. Slaves could become masters, and masters could become slaves among
Yes.
among the Greeks.
Yes. And the caste system at the Buddhist time was not as rigid and as tightly subdivided as it became later. But I don't see the Buddha crusading to end the caste system. He wasn't a social reformer. I think he accepted that society is as it is. This is samsara. It's always gonna be imperfect.
Yeah, yeah. Even certain kinds of killing, he really didn't speak out against very much. There was like the killing of criminals and warfare, of course,
Yeah.
and the killing of animals for food, which, I mean, he considered it to be immoral or unethical, but still, I mean, he wasn't on a crusade against it. The main kind of
Yeah.
killing that he seems to have come anywhere near to a crusade against was animal sacrifice.
Right. Yeah. 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 We see that particularly in the Sutta Nipata. But yeah, he was not a social reformer. He accepted that there was a society had the hierarchy and defined roles. You can see that in the Sagala Sutta, which is a very interesting sutta in a number of levels, just as a portrait of Indian society, for example, that the morality of a person is defined in terms of a fulfillment of duties. And the duties that you have depend on your place in society. And you're at any individual is in the center of a matrix of relationships. And the man he was talking to was a merchant, wealthy merchant class. So he had servants. He also had a wife and children. He had parents. And to all these different groups, he owes them duties. And then the reciprocant of his actions will respond out of compassion. He uses entirely different Pali language for going back. Like you do your duty, but you don't expect it like a debt. You don't expect an obligation on the part of the other person, but you hope that out of compassion, they will respond and perform their duties. And when everybody's doing their duties, then society is harmonious.
That makes me think of equality is politically correct, right? Like we're all equal, but like the Buddha was not saying that. Like you're saying, there's different stages or states within society, different stations within society. So we're not all equal. So equality is a big thing in terms of political correctness. So that's probably a problem. Certainly with law of karma, that's a big one. It says we're not equal.
As Pannobhasa mentioned, the law of karma, that law of karma will determine where you are in that matrix, where your position is. You're born into this station in society, and then you've got your duties to perform. And you're making your karma as you go. So in terms of the situations where there is an oppressor and an oppressed, the oppressed person is receiving karma, but the oppressor is making karma. They're not fulfilling their duties. They're not fulfilling their duties from their position, which should be to nourish and look after those below them in the serving class.
Yeah, I would point out that, and this is also bordering on politically incorrect, that the Buddha's most advanced disciples would simply opt out of society. So it wasn't really so much of a social reform movement, it was just renunciation of society.
I saw once an article, I forget where it was published, in some Western thing, maybe it was Tricycle or something like that, by a feminist offering an alternate version of the Buddha's life, where instead of leaving Yasodhara and Rahula in the palace, he changed his mind and came back in and did his, became the good husband and father, and still got enlightened anyway.
Oh, well, he could have become a Chakravata. What's the king of the world?
Yeah.
It could have been
that's what would
world
have happened.
ruler.
Yeah. Chakravata. Yes.
So yeah, that's another politically incorrect. I assume it'd be bordering on political incorrectness anyway. That renunciation is relatively fundamental to Dhamma. It's one of the 10 paramis, but nekama is one of the paramis that the Buddha has to perfect anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that also from feminist critiques that the celibacy of the monks is kind of misogynist.
Yeah, well, the nuns are celibate too. In fact, they're a little bit even more celibate in certain ways.
Yes.
They've got 8 parajikas as opposed to 4 for a bhikkhu.
Yes.
Which there's no way they're going to be able to change that one either. I mean, you can't change parajika rules.
But
No.
Ajahn, how can you explain that it's woman hating for men to be celibate? Because they're not giving enough love to women? Is that their problem?
You'd have to ask them how they come up with this. I suspect that, that's it, that I think in some circles, there's a misunderstanding of the Buddha's teaching against trying to transcend sensual desire is somehow anti-woman. It's like, it's not that the Buddha is saying women are evil and foul and stay away from women, but saying, sensual desires are dangerous.
Yeah, and nuns have to do the same thing.
Yeah, it works the other way too. Yeah.
So I guess the feminists just take it as an insult then.
Yeah.
I've encountered a few lay women who considered it a personal insult that monks would not touch women, as though they were, dirty or defiled or something.
Oh yeah. So the idea is to avoid the monks' sensuous desire, but they just turn that around and say, "Oh, you're being insulting because you're misogynist male," or something like that. And I think about women. The Buddha said women are more emotional than men. My lady friends hate it when I say that, but that's probably politically incorrect to say there's any difference between men and women at all. But isn't it true in the sutras? The Buddha said women are more emotional than men.
Well, that seems kind of obvious.
Definitely. I think to them, hopefully.
As far as it goes, like monks not touching women, I always explain that that rule has 3 reasons. One is for the protection of the monk, so he doesn't fall into sensual desire. One is for protection of the woman, because you see in some spiritual communities where the teacher can take sexual advantage of female students. That's a common thing.
Yeah.
And the third is for the reputation of the Sangha. So
I just thought of another politically incorrect teaching of Buddhism. This is in Abhidhamma, in that maleness and femaleness are ultimate realities.
Oh yeah. That's
is it
right.
ultimate reality?
Well,
Yeah.
they're Paramatmadhammas. It's one of the I forget how many there are. The Indriyas, they're different faculties. I think there's like 24 or something like that. And everybody has either the male or female faculty. And you've only got one or the other. Even Pandikas and hermaphrodites will be leaning one way or the other.
Oh, so that's
No,
politically
I didn't
incorrect
know
for
that
the
about
transgender.
hermaphrodites.
Yeah.
Transgender would be offended by that.
Oh yeah.
LGBTQ, that's offensive. Yeah, even the devas up to the 6th heaven, there's male principal leaders, male and female.
Oh, that's something I've had when I was writing my cosmology book. I had a number of people who kindly volunteered to proofread sections, and there was a woman who read the section about Tawatingsa heaven, and it talked about the devas and having all these dancing girls, the acharas.
And doesn't Saka have 25 million? And some of the lesser ones only have 500 females, right?
Celestial nymphs.
Yes.
Oh, that is politically incorrect. Oh my God.
There's actually different grades of them too. There's the like I think Saka has 500 principal nymphs, and then some 84 million or something of minor dancing girls.
Oh, 84 million, sorry.
And then the highest nymphs have their own retinue of handmaidens.
Right. And this person says, "Are you telling me that even in heaven there's masters and servants and grades and hierarchies. That's
Yes.
horrible. Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
I believe the cosmology, and it gives me something to look forward to after this life. Not
And
for
when
a
you get
month.
into the Brahma realms, it's supposedly there is no male or female. It
Yeah.
just seems
no.
essentially male.
Yeah, they're
Well, isn't it asexual, the Brahmas? I thought it was just asexual.
they're neither male nor female. They're only reckoned as beings, but their appearance is that of a young male. And the way I interpret that, the way I see it, if you had an anthropomorphic being stripped of all secondary sexual characteristics, so they'd have no genitals, so, and they wouldn't have like a beard, or they wouldn't have breasts, you know, they wouldn't have any of the kind of markers of male or female. They're going to look to an untrained eye, a person looking at them, a human, they're going to look more male, just sort of the neutral appearance.
Like a teenage boy. Something
Yeah,
that.
like a teenage boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I guess asexuality is more politically correct amongst the Brahmins. LGBTQ transgender crowd would probably be happy with the Brahmas more so than the Devas.
Well, you have to be a bit careful, because it's not like, you wouldn't call them non-binary, or, you know, like it's the,
Yeah, the non-binary.
they've transcended gender. It just doesn't.
Oh, yes.
They've gone beyond it.
Asexual.
But I think that's politically correct. That is politically correct to transcend gender, don't you think? There's no problem with that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
You can be charged with hate speech if you offend someone who says they transcended their gender. That is politically correct, I would say.
possibly. Although just the whole sexuality thing is, I mean, Buddhism frowning upon sexuality in general, that it's pretty much of necessity immoral to some degree, is something that would be politically incorrect, considering that there are so many leftist groups who identify through their sexuality now.
Yes.
That's, you know, they're identified through being, you know, homosexual or pansexual or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And of course, it seems that according to Vinaya, even like homosexual men would be not eligible for ordination. Or there's maybe the Ajahn can explain this, that there's a list of pandikas that are, I mean, pandikas cannot be ordained, but there was like the part-time pandika.
Yeah.
Like,
they turn male for half of the month and female for the other half of the month.
yeah, something like that.
There's a list of pandikas. It's all people with sort of indeterminate sexuality. There's one of the lists, which is where a kind of controversy about whether it's correct to ordain homosexuals or not. There's one of the types of pandika is the Pali, which I can't remember the Pali word, but it translates as something like the sprinkler. And it's someone who delights in giving oral sex.
Ah, yeah, I read about that before my ordination.
Yeah, so yeah, but I know in Thailand that's definitely not observed. They'll ordain a homosexual, but not a transgender.
Yeah, like a latent homosexual, I think, in Burma also.
Yeah, but that, you know, not practicing, obviously. I mean, if
Yeah,
homosexual acts are still parajika,
yeah.
that's clear, you know.
So the whole sexuality thing is politically incorrect, I think, from or most of the sexuality thing, I think, would be considered politically incorrect and is largely ignored or rejected by the Western Buddhists of the far left.
Yeah.
I think another one is just basic morality, that just keeping 5 precepts, I think, is would be seen as repressive or patriarchal or something along those lines. Just you know, just having one partner. I mean, you in Theravada, the 5 precepts, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to be married, but at least you would be, you know, loving each other and faithful to each other, and the woman would not have responsibilities to another male or some such, you know, she's living independently or something. And so yeah, the whole sexuality and morality thing is really kind of rubbing the left the wrong way. And it does seem that most Western Buddhists they're more interested in meditation than in the basic sila, unlike like Asian Buddhists.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They kind of, you know, try to jump over the first foundational steps,
Yeah.
jump into the deep end of the pool.
And before leaving sexuality altogether, I think I would point out that one major one is that in no uncertain terms, in Theravada, abortion is murder.
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's
Oh, very good point. Abortion. That's
Yeah.
political. Even Bhikkhu Bodhi fights for a woman's right to choose, and he's a Buddhist monk.
yeah, I
But
was
that's a leftist. I mean, that's a politically
really
correct
shocked to see that
leftist.
phrase. I was really shocked to see him use that phrase. That was
Yeah, women's reproductive rights or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
women's reproductive rights. He did state he's against abortion, but to
contraception. It could be, I mean, giving him the benefit of the doubt. He could have been thinking of contraception, access to contraception, which is not a violation of the precept to prevent conception. But once the egg has been fertilized, then it's an act of killing. It's a killing of a human being, taking of a human
Yeah.
I think Bhikkhu Bodhi says he's against abortion, but he's in favor of a woman's right to choose. But he's not saying I'm in favor of abortion. So I think he goes up to that line.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of political correctness, that's a major one, that women's right to choose. There's been like 60 million abortions in America since Roe and Wade in 1973. But yeah, you're right. Buddhism, it's flat out murder. You can't do that.
Yeah, like a bhikkhu who helps in any way to help a woman get an abortion. He's just parajika. He's excommunicated for life.
Or
Yeah,
even even if a bhikkhu says, well, abortion's okay, you can, and a woman hears it and takes an abortion,
That's
then,
it.
then he's parajika for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you really can't change parajika rules.
No.
So that's just locked into Theravada Buddhism. It's not something that you can really change and still have it be Theravada Buddhism.
See, that's another thing, is that's politically incorrect. You can't change rules. The politically correct people would want to change Theravada Buddhism. Let's change the parajika rules.
Yeah, well, that is sort of the way the left, the political left operates. Is it's a living document, sort of like the U.S. Constitution.
Oh yeah.
So it should be constantly evolving to get closer to some ideal, as though the Buddha himself were not capable of coming up with the ideal system, at least according to his own wisdom.
Yeah, that's the idea. Like, if the Buddha said anything that's not politically correct, well, actually, he didn't say that. The texts were changed later, you see, or somebody changed the text.
That's like
but
a
he
lot
couldn't
of the
have said that
bhikkhuni
because the
stuff.
Buddha, he's politically correct. Of course, he must have been politically correct. So someone must have changed the text.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the argument.
This is kind of an intellectual arrogance on their part, because they assume that the way they understand things, which is very recent and new, is correct. It's absolutely correct. And it's not possible for someone like the Buddha to disagree with them.
Yeah. The Buddha, if he really was enlightened, he would have to be politically correct by 21st century standards.
Yes. Yeah.
That's intellectual arrogance, like you say, Ajahn. So true.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're so convinced that they're right.
Yeah. There's one other point that might be politically incorrect. I'm not conversant enough in like leftist ideology to really say, but from the Buddhist point of view, and this is an important thing that I've tried to tell people a lot, is that regret is always unskillful.
Right.
I mean you can acknowledge that you made a mistake and determine that you're going to try to do better, but kukucha, or regret, remorse, is always bad karma, and it always is more bad than good.
Yes. In
So I
fact,
think your point is we're encouraged to regret, or maybe, Whitey is so bad, he should be made to feel guilty.
Oh,
and
yeah,
should
yeah,
constantly be apologizing all the time, right?
Yeah, we're supposed to
Your
feel
forefathers
guilty
did
over
3
something
centuries
our
ago.
ancestors did.
or even
Yeah,
not even our ancestors. How many of our ancestors were actually slave owners? It's like
Yeah,
supposed
not many.
to feel guilty about something some other guy did 200 years ago somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Insight Meditation Society promotes the book White Awake, which overtly promotes white guilt, I guess, because you should be mindful of your intrinsic white supremacy. So I guess you're saying that's an unskillful mental state that they're encouraging, right? So you're saying that's not Theravada Buddhism.
Yeah, well, I'd even go, add to that the whole idea of identity politics, reinforcing the way it's practiced. It reinforces self-view. It
Yeah.
solidifies the ego, and not, getting, going back to what we were saying before about karma, that no one is intrinsically, ultimately male or female, black or white or anything else. This is your karma to be born in this body and have these characteristics in this lifetime.
Yeah, and I think that is like one of the main ones that I was saving for last, is just the whole concept of no self. When you've got identity politics, reinforcing people's feeling of identity, and then
Yeah.
the Buddha is just saying that is delusion.
Yeah, a lot of lay Buddhist centers now have these affinity group sittings where it's only people of color, or it's only LGBTs, or only women, right? You have this, so you reinforce that aspect of self-view.
Yeah, I mean, like traditional Asian Buddhism, sometimes you'll have the men sitting on one side and the women sitting on the other side,
Yeah,
mainly just to avoid any kind of improper closeness or
Desire.
distraction, something like that.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, like having the Buddha giving a talk, and all the Brahmins sitting in one place, and the Kshatriyas in another, and the Vaishyas in another, and the Shudras in another.
even more than that, it would be like today's talk will be for the Kshatriyas, and no one else is allowed in.
Yeah, or the left-handed Kshatriyas.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the political correctness of the Mahayana. The Mahayana teacher, the Buddha gave this talk to the Mahayana here, but the Hinayanists, he did what, across town? I never could figure out that. This is Mahayana teachings, right? That's a whole other category.
Yeah.
How do you divide that?
You guys keep this secret for the next 500 years.
Don't tell the Hinayanists, because it's over their head, right? It's just too much for them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently even his chief disciples, it was over their head too. So, except for maybe Mahakassapa, who understood the twirling flower.
There was one, and I can't now. My details about the names are vague, but so I'm not going to say anything and get it wrong. But there was one of the early breakaway schools of Buddhism. Their founding myth is that their founder was a bhikkhu at the time of the Buddha, and he went up into the Himava and went into jhana for 300 years. And then he came down and he saw how people had, the monks at the time had corrupted the teaching. And he said, no, that's not what the Buddha taught. And he taught them this new doctrine.
Oh, so he make up his own thing, and that's the authentic Buddha, I guess.
Yeah, well, because he was supposedly a monk. He heard this from the Buddha, lived at the Buddha's time, then he went into jhana for 300 years, and he came down and saw how everyone had deviated from the original teaching.
That reminds me a bit of the Goenka school, right? How the one special technique that the Buddha really wanted to do is pass it from master to student in Burma. And today, Goenkaji is the lineage holder of the one special technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might as well throw in one gratuitous little political incorrectness in Theravada. Well, I don't know if it's in the suttas. Maybe the Ajahn can tell us. But although a female can become an arahant, only a male can become a Buddha.
Right, and there's a sutta on the impossible things. And, some of them relate to women cannot become a Buddha, cannot become a Mahabrahma, cannot become Mara. So a woman can't become a Mahabrahma in her next life. She can become a lesser Brahma, But if she's going to become a Mahabrahma, she has to be reborn as a male first. She has to have an intermediate life as a male.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Or I must have read it, but I forgot.
Thanks for remembering that one.
Although
Another one, go ahead.
mentioning that a female cannot become Mara, but there is that strange sutta. I think it's in the Majjhima of the Mara Tajaniya Sutta, where apparently Mara was related to Kali.
Oh yeah.
So that's an interesting early mention of Kali.
Yes. Yeah, it was. He was. I forget. He was her nephew, or she was his niece. I can't remember which way the relationship went, but it was a relationship. You know.
Yeah.
Familial relationship.
Another thing I could think of, I could ask you too, if this suits the idea that gifted children in our educational system, resources shouldn't be given to them so they can rise up in society. Instead, resources should be given to, you know, ungifted children or more deficient, and everyone should be made equal. It's like I also with taxation, we should tax the middle class and give it to the poor so everybody's more equal. Like from a Buddhist view, we have our karma, but of course, people should be compassionate towards others. But we have this kind of forced, politically correct system, you know, like Robin Hood. Would you want to comment on that? Like Theravada Buddhism probably wouldn't agree with that.
Well, I don't know if I would agree with you 100% on that, because there is the Kuttadanta Sutta, which is one of the few places where the Buddha really touches on kind of political issues. And he's recounting a past life when there was a king and his chief advisor, you know, the Brahmin Purohita, who was the Buddha in that, you know, it was a Bodhisattva. So there was some trouble in one of the provinces, and the king wanted to raise an army and go in and smash heads and hang a few of the troublemakers, as set an example. And the Purohita said, well, that'll only quiet things down for a short time. That what you need to do is to take care of the people. Those who wish to go into business, become merchants, you should help them by lending them capital. Those who wish to work, you should find them work in the royal service. Those who wish to farm, we should give them land and tools. So it's kind of a social welfare policy. You know,
okay. Yeah, that's what I was framing it kind of as a question. But what about those who don't want to work? Well, we'll just tax you and give them money for not working.
Yeah, yeah, there's no mention of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's even possible, really. I mean, the only way you could have complete equality, which is sort of the communist ideal, would be just sort of the homogenization of the beings coming through. There'd be like this filter where, you know, everyone would have pretty much the same sort of karma, even to be born here. And yeah, you just have like, I mean, the human realm would just become some strange, I don't know what you call it. Just it wouldn't be an ordinary human realm anymore. It'd be very different from this.
Like an ant colony.
Yeah.
I could ask also, is the whole process of rebirth politically correct over hundreds of lifetimes? Hopefully people will be going up in terms of their spiritual development from realm to realm, like human, and just getting more spiritual. Is it politically correct to develop and grow and become a better and better being in the future? Because you're not getting equal, you're getting better.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
yeah, I mean, there's no guarantee that you're going to be going up. You could be going down too, depending on your behavior and the karma you make in this life.
Maybe that's more politically correct than to go down or be the same as everybody else.
Well, I think the politically correct would be that the high would have to go down and the low would come up until you've gotten this equity. Although, I mean, how are you going to have 31 planes of existence when I mean, you just have one plane of existence left over, I think.
Someone left a comment on a previous video, Pannobhasa, that this was a great understatement. Pannobhasa said there's no equality in the 31 planes of existence.
Yeah, that was a good line. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe-
it's true, and it's sort of a microcosm on the earth. I mean, even on this planet, you know, you've got people just with human beings. You've got some who are, you know, born intelligent, and some who are born unintelligent, some are born healthy, some are born sickly, and so forth. So even at birth, you're not going to have equality, even if you know, even if somehow they've got the economic system worked out into pure communism. I mean, you're still not going to have complete equality.
Yeah, as a lay Buddhist, I feel it's like a typical lay Buddhist. I feel I'm trying to earn merit to win a higher rebirth. Like I'm not a monk. I'm not trying to get enlightened this lifetime. I'm just trying to win a higher rebirth. I intend to have a higher rebirth. I want to get higher and higher. I hope that's not too politically incorrect for me to aspire to be better than average. Hope that doesn't threaten the politically correct people.
Maybe we should encourage the beings in Tawa Tingsa to contemplate their Dewa privilege.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've got all this white privilege. They got the Deva privilege. Thank you, Ajahn. I've never heard that before. Very good. Maybe they can subsidize us and send some of them nymphs down or something and subsidize us. Well, not for a monk, of course.
Yeah.
So anything else on how Theravada Buddhism is politically incorrect? It's a good subject since the West is so more politically correct. So thanks for the subject, the question, pannobhasa.
Yeah, it just seems kind of strange to me that, I mean, they just want to change Theravada so it's not Theravada anymore. I mean, I don't know why they don't just fess up to it and just create their new kind of Buddhism, a new school of Buddhism, instead of trying to claim that it's, you know, Theravada or some other school, even something like Zen, where, you know, they're just mutating it almost beyond recognition.
I think
Because
that's
I mean, you
the
can't
best. Yeah.
you can't reconcile, you know, like the radical leftism of the postmodern West with orthodox Theravada. I mean, they're just irreconcilable
I think the
in
reason why
in
though,
certain basic ways.
yeah, I think the left, instead of creating its own thing, the left invades whatever's there and changes it more their way. The left kind of infects, you know, and changes things their way. So Theravada Buddhism is one thing the left can get its hands on, like other things in society.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm.
But as the Ajahn was saying a few weeks ago when we did the video, that you know, there have been attempts to mutate Dhamma from the beginning, and you just have to have faith that it's you know, there's enough intrinsic quality in genuine Dhamma that it's going to abide until it has completely run its course.
Yes. Yeah, it's probably this, all these kind of trends that we're talking about is probably a passing phase. It's probably this, you know, this in a generation or two, it'll be moved on to something else.
Yeah, sort of like the Soviet Union bombing Orthodox churches, and now the Russians seem to be good Orthodox Christians again.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good counterexample.
Yeah. Well, let's hope things are better in the generation. Should we wrap up? Any final thoughts?
No regrets.
No regrets. Yeah, don't complain and don't explain. Okay, thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, pannobhasa.
Okay.